There has to be consequences for that. And you've been telling the character, you've been telling the player, you've been giving them warnings, and the player's like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna keep seeing what I can get away with. I'm gonna keep pushing it a little bit more, a little bit more.
Are you a dungeon master looking for 5th edition adventures and other pre-made resources you can use in your D&D game? If so, Lair magazine has exactly what you need. Each monthly issue of Lair magazine contains 2 5th edition adventures complete with maps for use on virtual tabletops, plus a plethora of other GM resources, new monsters, puzzles, traps, magic items, NPCs, and more. DM Lair patrons receive a new issue of Lair magazine every month, and also get bonus content such as map packs and additional 5e adventures. Reduce your prep time and improve your games with Lair magazine. Become a DM Lair patron today.
Am I in the wrong for permanently killing off one of my players' characters? I have been DMing a group of 5 for over 2.5 years, and I recently killed off the party's warlock by turning it into a deathlock. What does that mean? This was caused by the character whose patron was an archdevil repeatedly acting against his patron. Yeah, that can be a problem. I gave him many warnings, but the final straw was when the warlock killed his patron's favorite son, a pit fiend. Yeah, that's a problem. I feel like your player was testing boundaries. My suspicion is that your player was kind of behaving and doing what children do. Does anybody know how children behave? Like, if you have like a son or a daughter and you tell them, you give them certain rules and expectations and stuff, children push boundaries. They see how far they can go. They see how far they can disobey or not do what you say until you actually enforce some sort of consequences. Whether that means like yelling at them or grounding them or taking away their phone, which, by the way, taking away a kid's phone is like the punishment of punishments. Holy crap. So my daughter once she was failing her geography class. I think it was geography or history class. This was middle school. No, this was 5th grade. I think this was 5th grade or 6th grade or something like that, but she was failing this class. No, it was like 5th grade. She was failing this class and getting E's. And it was crazy because the tests, the teacher would literally give them all the answers for the tests, and all you had to do was memorize the answers. It was like, I'm handing you a good grade, basically, and she was failing them. And so my wife and I are like, no, this isn't gonna work. So we took her phone away for a month. Wow, that was the worst punishment you could possibly give her. She hated that. And then I showed her exactly how to memorize things. I showed her a technique that I've used to learn like 3 different languages and stuff. This always works. It helps you memorize things. And so I showed her this technique, especially since the teacher gives them all the answers to the test ahead of time. I showed her how to memorize. I showed her how to study. I explained this stuff to her. I taught her how to do it. And then guess what? She was getting hundreds on her test, baby. 100, 100, 99, etc., etc. She was killing those tests. Obviously, I gave her the tools that she needed to do better, but also losing your cell phone, wow, did not like that. That struck like the fear of dad, I guess, into her heart. And she's like, I'm not losing my phone ever again. I'm just gonna get good grades. And guess what? She had like a 3. She graduated from high school with like a 3.8 or something. It was very good. It was very good. So anyway, I don't know how we got onto this story, but we were talking about players who test limits. So, and my dog is gonna start wandering over again. So this is what some players like, just like children, some of your players are going to test their limits. They're gonna see how far they can push before the game master steps in and says, no, not gonna happen. And so I feel like in this story, you have a player who is pushing the limits. They're seeing how far they can go before the game master actually does something. That's what this feels like to me. I gave him many warnings, but the final straw was when the warlock killed his patron's favorite son, a pit fiend. I immediately asked him to make a new character and described the gross transformation his character underwent to turn into a deathlock. He immediately started screaming at me about it being unfair that his character died so easily despite my repeated warnings. He said that unless I brought his character back, he would leave the table. So now I'm conflicted. Was I in the wrong for killing his character, and should I revive it or just let him leave? You're both in the wrong. And the truth is, I think that most of the time when there's an argument or something happens, both people are probably in the wrong. Both people have probably done something that they shouldn't have done. And in both parties, almost always, both parties do something. So, and this is the case too, where both parties have done something wrong. So the player was pushing boundaries. The player was not listening to the game master's warnings, and they decided to do a thing. They killed the son of their own patron, the warlock. So there's an archfiend, warlock, patron. Archfiend has a son. I killed the son. Like, that's pretty stupid. That's very stupid. That player should know better. They're pushing the boundaries, and then the game master, they came down with a fist of iron and killed the character. So I feel like that response is very heavy-handed. I would not have done that. I probably would have spoken. Now this all depends, because here's the thing. Like, if I have a player who's pushing the boundaries like this, and in my opinion, acting fairly immature, then the chances are that talking to that player is not going to help, because they're just immature and they're going to keep on doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. It's like I've been giving them chances by talking to them. But I still feel like there's probably going to be like one last Hail Mary where after the player's warlock kills the pit fiend son of their own patron, I pull the player aside and I say, listen, dude, like, I've warned you repeatedly, like, and you keep doing these things and you keep testing your patron. Well, your patron's had enough. Like, you're not following your patron. You've killed their own son. Like, there have to be consequences. What do you think should be the consequences of this? You know, and see what the player says. Now, if they're at all mature, they're going to understand that this is a problem from a role-playing perspective, right? But my feeling is that you're not dealing with a mature player. My feeling is you're dealing with somebody who's very immature, and they're probably not going to care, you know? At which point they're just going to be like, yeah, nothing, man. My patron's just going to roll with it. They don't care. No, at the very least, the patron is going to stop giving them spells and magic abilities. Like, I feel like the patron is going to cut them off. Like, you killed my son. I'm no longer your patron. You're cut off. And so the warlock would lose their magical abilities. Like, they're done. They're now like a level 1 sorcerer or a level 1 wizard or level 1 bard or something. Like, there has to be consequences for that. And you've been telling the character, you've been telling the player, you've been giving them warnings, and the player's like, I don't care. I'm gonna keep seeing what I can get away with. I'm gonna keep pushing it a little bit more. And this is what the player's doing. So my gut tells me that having a last conversation with them is probably not gonna do any good, because they've already been doing this stuff and they don't care. I would still probably try, and if that conversation was unproductive, I would just tell them, you know, well, this isn't going to work. Your patron is either going to cut you off and you're not going to have any powers, or they're going to, or something else, you know. But at the end of the day, you need to make up a new character, because you just lost all your powers, unless you want to play like a level 1 sorcerer. You know, like, your patron cuts you off, but there's some residual energy, magical energy that stays inside you, and you can now start leveling up as a sorcerer. And they're not going to be happy about that. They're going to say bullcrap on that. But like, I'm going to say, look, dude, I've been giving you warnings and you've been pushing the limit and you're doing stupid stuff. Like, you have to expect there's going to be consequences. This is a role-playing game, and I've been warning you and you don't listen, you know, and chances are good this isn't going to go well. If you've gotten to this point in your game, that player is probably immature and they're just going to react poorly no matter what you do. If you don't capitulate to whatever they want, they're just going to explode at you. So I feel like there's no way that this is going to go well. I don't think there is no happy resolution to this. I think the only way that this is going to end, there's only 2 ways that something like this is going to end. First of all, the game master just capitulates and lets the player do whatever the heck they want. And frankly, that's what a lot of game masters do, and that's why you have so many games that are crap shows, right? Because they don't put their feet down. The game masters don't put their feet down, and they don't like, no, this is too much. Or you can put your foot down and the player is going to explode and scream at you because they're immature and they don't give a flying crap about whatever, and then they're going to leave the game. But either way, you've won. If you have a player like that and they leave the game, I think that's a win, because you can go recruit a different player and they're maybe going to be a better player. So I wouldn't fret about them leaving the game. I think you should do, so like the question here then is, was I in the wrong for killing his character, and should I revive it or just let him leave? So this is what I would do. Ask yourself, do you really want this player in your game? They're threatening to leave. They're trying to manipulate you right now. They're literally trying to manipulate you and saying, if you don't revive my character, I'm leaving the game. They're trying to manipulate you. That tells you something about their character, right? The moment you have somebody trying to manipulate you on that level, that tells you something about them as a person, and it's not something good. So you need to ask yourself, do you really want that person in your game or not? Do you really want them to stay? Because they're about to leave, and it's a whole lot easier to just say, no, I'm sorry, your character is dead. You're welcome to stay if you want, or you could just leave. And they're probably gonna leave. But if it were me, and this has already all been done, right? And there was no take backsies, I would probably just simply tell the player, you know what? I think you're leaving the game is the best thing at this point, and be done. Don't even give them the option to stay. If they've already been pressing the boundaries and they won't listen to your warnings, and now they're screaming at you and freaking out and threatening to leave if you don't take back the death and stuff, like at this point, I don't want them in my game.